Thanks for stopping in to Mind Over Math. Today we're going to talk about adding integers. In order to do that, the first thing I want to talk about is what is an integer. Hi everybody, thanks for stopping in. Let me remind you to subscribe, like the video, and comment down below with ideas that you have for future videos or questions you might have. Thank you. An integer, as listed here, is numbers like -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, and then you'll see ... which means it goes on forever in both directions. These are not fractions, these are not decimals, these are the exact numbers, positive, negative, and 0. So I want to illustrate that here in part 1, adding integers using a green positive chip and a red negative chip. We're going to be talking about what's the difference between adding like signs, that's 2 positives or 3 positives, and opposite signs, a positive and a negative. You can view this on a timeline. Think of these chips as one red chip at -1, 2 red chip stands for -2, and 3 and 4. But now at 0, what is a positive plus a negative? Well, it's 0. So this is actually called a 0 pair. Now normally we don't even talk about that, we just say 0. So then you have +1, +2, +3, +4. So these chips are what we're going to use to teach the concept so you get the idea of the greater quantity. So the first thing we want to do is do something simple, like add 1 plus 1. Now whether it has a positive on it, it's assumed to be positive. So I would have 2 chips, 1 plus 1 is 2. So in the case of 2 positives, you do what you did in addition all along, you add them. Then if you have a positive plus a negative, that would be the same as having 1 positive green, 1 negative red, which adds up to 0, or we would call it a 0 pair in the illustration. -1 plus -1 would be like adding 2 negatives together. -1 plus -1 is -2. So it may make sense to you seeing it this way when you just can't quite keep straight. Am I supposed to add or am I supposed to subtract? So let's do this with, again, 2 positives. Well, 3 plus 2 is 5. Now we know that you've done addition a lot. So that means +3 plus +2 is +5. Positive plus a positive is a positive. Now let's do that with a negative and a positive. A -2 plus a +2 is 0. These are 2 0 pairs. In other words, they cancel each other out. It's a 0 charge. -4 plus -2. Now you see that you have like signs. So what do? You add them. Now they're both negative, so the sign that they both have would be the answer. Now this can get confusing when you do multiplication, but addition is pretty clear cut. So 4 negatives plus 2 negatives is 6 negatives. Now if you're seeing a pattern here of like signs, it's to add them. If you see the pattern with opposite signs, you're actually subtracting them. But it's not quite that clear yet. So first we take positives plus a positive equals a positive. -4 plus +2 is -2. Now you can understand that with the chips. That seems pretty clear. The question is, without chips, are you adding or subtracting these? Now the answer is, you're actually subtracting them, but you're subtracting the absolute value. Now you can see that the red chips, there's 4 of those, that's a much bigger power compared to 2 of the greens. So when we subtract them, we're actually subtracting 2 from 4, which is 2. Now the sign of the number, which is obviously carrying more power, is the sign of the answer. Or -3 plus -2 is -5. Again, illustrating that is -5. Now what gets confused is when multiplication comes in and we have a different set of rules. But if you can visualize these, you are more likely to be able to think through what you're doing when it's addition in part 2, subtraction. So here's some problems for you to try. I would write these down right now. Write them down, pause the video, and on the next slide I'm going to show you the solutions to them. So now we're back. Hopefully you've written these down and tried them, because then you will know whether you understand this or not. Without the chips, you would have 5 plus 4 would be a +9. They're both like signs, so you add them. The second one here, -18 plus 13, they do have opposite signs. So it is in math as though you were taking the absolute value of -18, which is +18, and subtracting 13 from it, which is 5. Where's the negative come from? Well, that's because the original problem, there was more quantity of -18 than there was of 13. So you put a negative there. Third one is -14 plus 8. Again, opposite signs. So you use the absolute value, that's real math, of taking -14, the absolute value is +14, subtract from it 8, which is 6. Now, why is the negative there? Because the original number was way larger as -14 than 8, so you have -6. -19 plus 9, similar idea. These signs are opposite, therefore the absolute value of -19 is +19. Subtract 9 from it and you get 10. It's not +10 though. Look back at the original problem. It's -19. The bigger quantity is negative. -6 plus -7 is -13, like signs. Therefore, you add them. -27 plus 21. Again, opposite signs. You subtract larger quantity minus smaller quantity, which is 6. It's negative because 27 is the larger of them. So hopefully this helps you get you on the right track of how to add like signs and opposite signs. Part 2 follows, subtracting integers. Check it out. Hi everybody, thanks for stopping in. Let me remind you to subscribe, like the video, and comment down below with ideas that you have for future videos or questions you might have.